was a note to Nick and Katrina in the New York office about what to do with the manuscript, the first batch of the Fires of Heaven. Ornaments, table of contents, word list, which the copy editor uses to, this is pre-spell check. And Jim, once we got spell check, put all his words into spell check, and I said, such a mistake. It's never going to pick up anything. Who is the copy editor? Can you, when you find her, ask her to call? Regarding Elaine and Rand, and tell her Rand me on. I wonder what I wanted to say. I don't remember. So this was, and then this is, yeah, this is the style sheet, which the copy editor is responsible for deriving generally. But I think we did, and we've got a thing, oh yeah, addle painted. It's important. The theory is words like that either have a hyphen or they don't, and it should be consistent all the way through. So this is the guideline, and it's handed on to the printer, theoretically. Pick up on this stuff.
And it also lists things like split and fit is okay, different,
It uses the serial comma or it doesn't.
Yeah, so
I've also seen it called the Oxford comma.
More simply put, this is where you kind of determine that all instances of the word Sidar are going to be italics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that traveled has 2 L's instead of 1.
Yeah. Does that, your style sheets for this particular, when you have a series of books, I'm assuming that it builds on the previous
Travels through, yes.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
And ideally, if you can get the same copy editor for all the books, you can.
Then you'd have absolute consistency. It hasn't quite worked that way. Human error comes in there. And this is in there as a, I love Terry Pratchett.
I was gonna say,
this is Terry Pratchett. It's to show the use of small caps, which I love. Who reads Pratchett? Death talks in small caps, like James Earl Jones. And, but I love small caps when you, if in manuscript, when you put in caps, I've noticed as a constant reader, if I turn the page and over here I see the word stop in caps, it's very hard not to skip to the caps, but small caps sneak up on you, so that they're a nice thing to use, and that's it.
Just like
How do you do that on the computer?
I don't know. You
Small
could try
caps?
your font.
Control, if you're doing Word, Control D.
Is small cap?
It'll pull up various options, and there's an option for small caps.
Okay.
And also for strike through and superscript, subscript, stuff like that.
You can change your font size and stuff.
Yeah. But if you're doing it on the computer, but for a copy edit, the copy edit mark for small caps is underline once is italics, underline twice is small caps, underline 3 times is caps. So.
Did that voice that spoke in Eye of the World, was it in small caps?
I don't remember.
Does anyone know?
Probably should have been.
It's either in caps or it's in small caps.
I think it's all caps.
It's all caps? Okay.
Well, maybe it was up big.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Any questions?
After it goes to the copy editor, does the author get a chance to look at it again to make sure the
Absolutely.
copy editor doesn't make a mistake?
Yes.
Sometimes you get overzealous copy editors, especially maybe a copy editor who's used to doing fiction or nonfiction, and they get a science fiction book and they're not a science fiction reader. They may not understand like some of the concepts the tropes that are pretty much a given, or they may be way too literal and change an author's kind of particular voice or the way a character speaks if it's ungrammatical. It's sometimes that happens, and then the author goes through and writes stat, S-T-E-T, which I'm not quite sure where it comes from, but
I am.
well,
And it's on my license plate, as a matter of fact, stat. It is let it stand in Latin. It's
okay.
the same verb as stabat mater, there she stands, the sorrowing mother, and stationary, meaning still. Let it.
So it means don't change it. Put it back
Right.
to the way it was.
Put it back the way it was.
yeah, and rather than marking it, that way you have a record of what the copy editor wrote, and you write stat, And usually, if you think it's going to be unclear what exactly you're studying, you put little dots underneath it, and it's basically to make sure. Or sometimes I will circles and draw arrows, and if it's
don't do this.
yeah.
But that's
At Way of Kings, we got our first electronic copy edit ever.
Yeah, I've never done that either. So
It was only done electronically.
whoa.
Yeah.
And so far, it seems. Well, I don't know. It hasn't.
It's faster.
And your hencher is going through it as we speak.
Yes. Yep. I don't have to do that anymore. I've got
He's got
some.
a good henchman.
So
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
should we? So basically, once it goes to the copy, once Harriet and I work on a book, and we get a final manuscript that we're happy with, we turn it over to the production department. It goes out to a copy editor, and the copy editor looks for things like grammar, consistency. Is the character's eyes blue on page 3 and on page 400? Things like that. And then they mark it up. And they also mark, first time I sent a copy edit to one of my authors, she flipped out because she thought all those marks were mistakes. And they actually mark up a lot of stuff as kind of notes for the production, for the typesetter. Mark up headers and just notes of stuff they need to keep an eye on.
Chapter 1 and the title.
Do you have consistent teams that you work with for, like, an editor with a copy editor with somebody who's doing typesetting, or is it just kind of within-house, whoever's up next for that? So they
Usually we can request a specific copy editor if they're available. Some copy editors are incredibly busy. All our copy editors are freelance. And we send it out, we contact them to see if they're available on a book like, The Wheel of Time. Once we have an idea of when the manuscript's coming in, we'll actually kind of reserve that time and say, this is coming in then,
And
hold it open for us.
We've had the same copy editor in many of the books.
Is it Terry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brandon likes Terry too, so she's just done Way of Kings too,
Yep, she
hasn't
did.
she?
So the copy editor gets to read the book before the rest of us.
They have to read it twice.
Yes, but it's different.
Yeah,
Um,
they're not
They're reading it for
enjoying
work.
it.
And editing is different. A lot of what I do is sit there and say to myself, but you said, which is not reading very joyfully.
What I was like,
The function of the editor is to be a trustworthy first reader.
Brutally honest.
Hmm?
Brutally honest.
Well, and also to help clean up the stuff that would get in the reader's eye later, to do in private what the writer really doesn't want done by reviewers.
I just had, Harriet actually did a draft, a revision on Way of Kings for us. Very nice of her to do, by the way.
You owe me a kidney.
Yeah. Yeah, out of the goodness of her heart, she did edited a 400,000 word book. And most of what Harriet was doing in that case was making the language better. And, it's all of this stuff, like, it's very easy as a writer, it's very hard to keep from using a lot of the same construction and phrasings when you're writing, because you find when it works and you start using it, but then it becomes obvious, and then it draws you out of the story, and you don't want to do that. Beyond that, there's a lot of clarity issues. There's, not a paragraph that Harriet didn't say, oh, you used passive voice here, or, oh, this is a repeated word, make sure you're not using this too much, or, let's reorder this sentence so that the independent clause comes first, so it's not a confusing sentence, or things like this that are just making the writing more readable. And that's a line by line, and that's in addition to all the things she was showing up here. Where it's like this part is boring, or this part there's a sentence by sentence need for someone. Particularly Harriet is very good at this. I will say they're really, really good at just taking language and making it. Pretty is the wrong word. It is getting prettier, but it's getting more precise. She'll say use a precise word here. A great example in I remember from the Wheel of Time book, one of the first times, someone had pushed me on something like this that I just thought, oh, that's the right thing to do, was I had just written, it's in Gathering Storm. Rand walks into the room. I said there's a wooden bed by the wall, and Harriet writes, well, what kind of wood is it? And why that is such a great edit as a writer, if you're an aspiring writer, is saying there was an oak log bed by the wall takes the same number of words as saying there was a large wooden bed by the wall, and yet one conjures a more descriptive image than the other. And whenever you can use the same words or fewer words to get a more concrete, better image, that's what you want to do. And that's the sort of thing that Harriet encourages me to do.
Thank you, Brandon. That's called line editing. Editing is when you say, yeah, we can sell this mother. And as long as you change the hero to a heroine and have the elephant stand on its head, then we have a deal. The line edit, it sort of doesn't get done these days, but it's the part I've always liked best.
So how many times do you read a book? Like the manuscript that you get? I mean, do you read it? How many times do you go through it? I mean, I'm assuming you have to get the overall stories.
Well, now it's Brandon. I mean, he's the only guy I'm editing.
No, but in general, I mean,
you read it once to see if you want to buy it, and then read it again to see what needs to happen before it can be released from your editorial nest into the great
I'm
world.
usually 3, maybe 4 times.
I think
At
Harriet-
the end, I'll just be a check, or I'll do a word compare, the old file versus the new file, and see what little bits have changed, and see if they address what these guys have had their hands on for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Do you ever read a book after the fact, just for the pleasure of reading it, if you've edited it?
Me?
Yes.
I am reading Conan Chronicles #1 at the moment. I hadn't read any of James Conan's since they were published. And the British publisher sends me a copy when they do a new printing of everything, which is a nice habit, as I've told already often.
I send
Do you? It ought to be automatic.
But you
under
do
the
read-
royalty department.
You read it differently when you read it then, yes?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a very left brain, right brain kind of thing.
It's funny because I read The Way of Kings. I had a chance to read it, and I went in and talked to the publisher, Tom Doherty, and told him how much I liked it. And he said, well, he asked me about this, that, and the other, and I was like, no, I didn't really read it that way. I just read it.
Yeah, we had the same conversation too.
Yeah, so.
But I think that thing is it is terrific, really terrific.
So let me get you, and then there was some people. You're okay.
So, question for Harriet is, I know that as Jim's editor, as he was going along and turning pages over to you or working on a story, were there ever any instances where you felt strongly and told him you're going in the wrong direction with this, like maybe in a bigger scale, maybe not just like an individual problem, and where did he correct it and change?
That there was one scene in a Conan where I'd given him notes and said, you have to redo this, and he didn't. And I went up to him and I said, now listen, come out here. You're Conan and I'm, what's her name? I've forgotten what her name was. He said, yeah. I said, you're behind me. He said, yeah. He said, all right, now you're going to pick me up by my waist and you're going to turn me over so that my head is towards the floor. He said, so what's your problem? I said, so I'm kicking you squarely in the balls. He said, oh, I see what you mean. And he fixed that.